All right, my friends. Today is April the 28th. It is Monday, a bit into the MY session. You know what time it is. Let's go ahead and get into the market outlook and plans for the week ahead. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with the macro. A few little updates here. The first point that we're going to make is that, I'm still macro bullish, right? The core plan has had no changes. I'm going to present a couple of variables that will weave into it a little bit and kind of where I'm at with my kind of gut read on things and my systemization. So my system says that, yo guys, hit that like and subscribe button for me. Appreciate it. This should bonk, and that we should see more blood come as we start to transition into the summertime. So basically Q2 should be chop into Q3, more chop probably, and then that's where the trend starts to resume is later into Q3. Maybe that front run starts to come midpoint in the quarter or something like that. My gut tells me that the strength that we've seen from bulls recently has been unexpected. I think that we've caught a lot of people off guard. So I'm kind of torn right now where my system says you can't take excess risk right now because if you're wrong, you're going to get clobbered, right? My gut tells me that very few people are actually adapting to what's happening in front of us. And it really ultimately just comes down to a question of, are we about to break the mold or the, schematic that we followed for years of how basically every year plays out? Are we going to break that and have, like a summertime rally? I don't even think it would pull up on this chart. It wouldn't. But back in, I think, 2019 or 2018, that was the last time we ever had a summertime rally on Bitcoin. So are we going to break the mold and rally in May? It's a tough one, to be honest, for me. So go ahead and spit out some more thoughts as we run through here. So the main kind of conversation you want to have here, and we'll emphasize this much more on medium time frame, right? But this little micro range that bulls are building out right here, it's fighting for reacceptance into this previous macro range, right? This November, December, January range right here is the risk on signal for bullish continuation. I really did not expect that in late April we would be trading as high as we are. On this little doodle that I drew this a couple weeks ago, I really expected this to be significant resistance, and we actually did the exact opposite, where we just traded right through it after showing strength at local resistance, right? So to kind of TLDR everything, I do think that it's going to be pretty obvious over the next couple of weeks how the rest of Q2 is going to play out. Either this week we're going to see more undeniable strength from bulls, and you're just going to have to jump on board and get long, or we're going to start to see that weakness that we probably should have seen weakness last week, right? So we should start to see that weakness this week if it's going to come through here. Let's talk about levels a little bit, right? So originally our key focus was 75K. That was the macro buy the dip zone, and we wanted to see bulls get above 90K. I, again, did not expect that we would just in one attempt from the lows get through 90K. So now the new levels to focus on are going to be, essentially 90K is going to be your buy the dip zone. Your classic resistance turned into support. You're trying to fight for acceptance back into this range, which the range low is roughly, 92.4K. I think 100K is, I'm going to call it a little bit over 100K. Because I think this 100K is obviously the psychological level from a technical standpoint. When I was scanning through before I did this video, I think a little bit over 100K is actually where the next major resistance is at. Beyond 100K, you're targeting 120K, and from 120K, 150. I really do think that later in the year, we're going to be up here. It's just going to be a matter of what happens next, right? And, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict it. I'm in a good situation positioning-wise to where if we do end up breaking the mold and having a really bullish summer for some reason, I'm just going to buy up altcoins, right? I already have an enormous amount of Bitcoin long exposure. I'll just go down the risk totem pole and buy up some shitters. That's basically how I'm going to play this, and if I'm wrong, that means I'm going to start to unwind my Bitcoin positioning soon and go back to full defense. Okay, that's pretty much it, right? We talked about the levels. We got the bull hopium levels, the bear levels macro. Is basically 60K, right? This was the macro support level at 75. If 75 doesn't hold, if we, to retest that, right? for the bull or for the bears that want to see Bitcoin go to zero, 60K is your next major kind of breakdown level. I don't think that we're going to see price down this low though. I think that, like I was kind of saying, we'll emphasize this more on medium time frame, but I think that if Bitcoin's going to trade down at all, it's setting itself up for a higher low. Okay, medium time frame, yeah. So first thing I want to say is that I think my plan, it didn't play out perfectly. I got the first parts of it correct, and then I expected us to form the lower high or higher low, excuse me, and we just traded up from there. So now where we're at right now is I think we're basically at this stage where we just skip that leg down. So if bulls are going to be strong, guys, this is what it's going to look like, right? We did this range and then we legged up, and now we're building this range. If we're going to be bullish, I don't think that bears or bulls are going to trade too much further than this kind of area right here, right? There's a lot of supports in here, so I don't really want to see 89K getting lost basically. Obviously have a little bit of be a little bit loose with that. If volatility comes through, maybe you trade to 87 and it's not, you just rebound or whatever, but you get my point, right? We don't want to be sluggish below 90K at all, right? Any trades, any point trading down towards 90K, you want that to get bought up. If that's how it plays out, where we continue to build up this range and get bought up and then trade upwards, trading upwards from this range, guys, is going to be a big trigger for me to believe more in the rally, okay? So talked about this on the stream on Friday, but if we break up from this range that we're building here, that basically, per the way that I view auction market theory, is telling me that the trend is going to ignite, and at the very least would be taking us up to probably make an all-time high, and maybe that would get bonked and go back into summertime chop. But I think that would at least give us more juice. And if, let's be honest, guys, if Bitcoin does another leg, right, the aggregate of the market, it would be so so much opportunity, right, and just abundance every which way. So this is basically what you're looking for if you want to be bullish. If we start to break down from this range that we're in, it's not necessarily the end of the world, but how we interact as we trade down into the 90s is going to be important, right? If we're really sluggish down below 90 and stuff, it means that we're going to be reaccepting back into this range, and that basically means that basic auction market theory logic is when you have a distribution, the further you go outside of the distribution and then come back into it, the more likely you are to go very far on the opposite side. So we went really, really far outside of value to the upside, which means we're probably going to go far to the downside, right? I don't really hope and want that to be the case, but that is, definitely one of the principles I operate under. So if we break down from this range and don't get defended at 90K, you're really looking for that macro higher low to form. Who knows, right? Whether it's in the mid 80s, maybe it goes all the way down to the upper 70s. I don't know, right? I can't predict that. We will have to wait and watch. Let's go ahead and talk about alts just a little bit. Because that's a good segue in, because of the fact that the market's heating up. It's just a question, guys, of with alts is the market heating up to be a hot summer, or are we just in that late stage beta trade that we always talk about, right? 420, we like that on Altcoin. Of course, that's the best target, right? We always talk about this idea that whenever Bitcoin trades up, you're going to have a couple of things that are good that will trade up with it. And the majority of things will just lead and will just lag, right? And then once Bitcoin is kind of loses momentum and goes into that distributive range phase is when all your shitters catch up. So it's a question of when we're seeing shitters pop off recently, are we at the beginning of a heat up stage, or are we at the beginning of like a risk off kind of shift stage? Because that's the classic risk totem pole, right? Bitcoin trades up. Strong, good things trade up. Then your shitters catch up. Then your absolute filth and just on-chain scams, pump, and then, right? I mean, it's over. So it is really ultimately a question of what we're doing, and you don't need to get complicated with it, right? You want to know how you answer this question? What's Bitcoin's range do, right? Go back to that little range that we just talked about. If Bitcoin trades up from its range, then we're gonna be fucking slurping up altcoins. It's that simple. All right, let's talk about some alts that maybe look good. Obviously, Altcoin looks fucking good, right? There's no there's no beating around the bush on this thing. If you want to buy an altcoin, because you're bullish on crypto, this is one you should be considering. I think that Ripple looks okay. I don't like this coin that much per se, structurally, but it doesn't look terrible to where I have to just straight shit on it. So this is a pretty safe play. Sui definitely started a crazy scam recently. This is a tough one. Either it's going to play out like it did the last trend, right, where it's just like relentless uptrend, or that maybe this is just a dead cat. I would say that this thing again, is everything's going to be contingent upon what Bitcoin does, but maybe Sui becomes a hot coin, right? Clearly we've seen that there's been some attention coming back to memes, so maybe I size up at some point on Doge or something else. So I honestly, the bonk chart is one of the ones that's been the most interesting to me. It's been showing a lot of relative strength recently. I will probably, if I end up going back into memes at some point, just so you guys know, I will probably pick up Doge, Pepe, and Bonk. Those are, I mean, if you remember what last, Risk on Stage looked like, I basically did the same kind of thing. I'm not going to be the guy that goes and buys the, 2000 market cap meme coin, right? I'm just going to go buy the big meme coins and be comfortable, maybe underperforming in more liquid stuff. That's my style. That's pretty much it for altcoin chat. Yeah, basically, just focus on Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin's going to give us all the answers right now. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Hopefully everyone had a good weekend. I do think that this will be a pretty tradable week. I'm going to be pretty busy today with meetings and a whole bunch of bullshit, to be honest. But I think later in this week, I'll probably be clicking buttons a lot. So good luck out there. Hit me with any questions you have. Cheers.